since I will be doing that long speech in English for the first time, so I'm really dependent on this paper, so I hope you don't mind. Love brought me to the world, and it was not always the case where my parents come from. My father and my dad, they had to run away to get married because they were not giving permission from their own parents. So they moved all the way from east of Turkey to west. So that's why I say love brought me to the world, and love brought me to Bergen. So that's why love is always on my agenda. That was my short introduction to myself, because you already know where I work. So I'll be giving a very short introduction of the work we do in Norway as IMDI, my directorate. Because forced marriage is considered both as an integration challenge and as a family violence-related social problem in Norway. And the first action plan against forced marriage, it was initiated in 1998. But first in 2008, IMDI got involved with really heavy measures. And the main goal of the action plan against forced marriage was to combat forced marriage through prevention, which was the main focus, and by helping the victims of such abuse. And I will say the Norwegian effort on this field is quite unique. Not because we have lots of money to put on this issue, it's not just that, it's connected to the history of equality, the gender equality in Norway. And so the government have been using lots of money on that. We had the 4 main measures. One of them was called minority counselors, and they were placed in upper secondary schools, and that resulted in more young people who need help being identified. And this system has also contributed to raising awareness in schools through conversation and preventive measures. And the other one was the integration counselors. They were placed at foreign service missions in abroad. We have one in Kenya, one in Pakistan, in Ankara, and in Amman. So they sit on Norwegian embassies and work specifically with this issue. And that resulted in several victims and people at risk receiving assistance from the origin of countries, actually. The other thing Norwegian government managed to create was this expert team who serves the first line through whole Norway. They have a phone line where they have experts from different places in government working with youth, and they have actually they are the main registration system. They have the main registration system. If we are going to be able to say anything about how big this problem is from our point of view, so we look at the numbers the expert team gets, because they have the most of the cases. Actually, they register most of the cases since it is from the whole Norway. And after 2008, we have been doing lots of experiences, of course. And in the beginning, we were very focused on forced marriage. That was it. And then when we gave a report in 2011 called It's not just about forced marriage, where we summarize all the experiences, that we could see that this is not just about forced marriage. The problem is very complex. it is not easy to understand, and it is, like you said, when you don't know the sign, you don't find it. You have to know what you're looking for. So we were writing all these signs we have been seeing and experiencing, and at the same time we came to an understanding where we just say that, okay, we have to work together. Lots of institutions, they have to come together and approach to the issues as a whole, because there are lots of so-called general migration challenges as well. It is about the generation clashes, it is about age clashes, cultural clashes. There are lots of levels we have to be aware of to understand this issue. So we said that, okay, we have to do lots of things at the same time and simultaneously. Because it is not just about youth who cannot choose what they want to be. It is always a collective which is included in this question. So it is also about families who cannot choose what kind of life they have to live in exile. The pressure and the expectations from relatives from their origin countries, and the expectations from their own community, that divides families as well. So we don't have only youth as victims. Of course, we can ask question what family chooses. Do they choose collective, the best of collective, or do they choose best of the individual? And there's a important aspect of this. But we have also seen that there is no point of putting people in boxes, okay? We have to have this so-called holistic approach to the problem. So that demands services such as the police, child security service, child welfare service, schools, the family counseling service, health and social services, at the foreign service, they have to be involved. And this requires a uniform and coordinated approach. So good cooperation across agencies, disciplines, and national borders is necessary, both to help victims and to prevent abuse. At the same time, this is one of the most difficult things to achieve, because theoretically, when you say interprofessional collaboration is a good thing, you will see that most people agree on that, and they will love to work together. So theoretically, it is a good thing, but at the same time, it is difficult. It is difficult, and so why it is difficult? Because it demands a will to collaborate, okay? And if it is there, then it's the first step. But then you have to go beyond your very strict institutional frames, which is not always the case in Norway, where we have very strong bureaucracy, very strong institutional frames. This is my experience as a regional coordinator, and I see people do like that. I love it. So this is a paradox. We talk about interprofessional collaboration, nice word, but at the same time, so difficult to actually get there. So this is one of the challenges I identify. And the other challenge, I'm already challenging, the other challenge is that in the big cities in Norway, the first line and different services, they've been facing different challenges. And as a result of big concentration of migrant population in big cities, we gathered knowledge about target groups also in big cities. If we look at the Norwegian government's resettlement policy, it is decentralized. And most of the people who are our main target group are among refugees. So decentralized resettlement policy means that we now ask every single tiny place, municipality in Norway to receive refugees. Most of them have seen refugees only on TV. So we do not, in Norway, we don't have this long history with colonization and having all these minority groups. So many places people have not been in interaction with refugees or with migrants from outside of Europe. So that means that these services placed outside of big cities, they have to start these services with the idea of that there are different groups with different needs. And we have to have knowledge about migration challenges. We have to have knowledge, awareness of challenges connected to unrelated violence. They have to start like from zero. So that's why I personally love traveling through west of Norway. I go to these very small places to show Banaz. I travel from Stryn, Suldal, places where nobody go, I assume, and very small places to bring this knowledge out of big cities and to break this idea of that we have only migrants in big cities. We have to expand our services where we have most of them, because, like Dia said, this problem concerns whole society, and we cannot depend on these driving, like individuals driving forces alone. We have to implement this knowledge in the system. And we know that our society is getting more and more diverse, and we know immigration is not going to stop. And we have this so-called refugee wave, so this is not going to end. That's why we should not be dependent on one nice, engaged person who always takes care of the immigrants to do the job. So I would see this as a main and major challenge, how to implement this knowledge, this understanding in the system, in our system. So another challenge I see is that we have not more than 4 or 5 criminal cases about forced marriages. And some claim that with more criminal cases, we will be able to prevent more serious cases. And remember just the signals of Banaz's case. Another one, I already mentioned actually having this holistic approach. But I will give an example to explain it more, what I mean by holistic challenge with holistic approach. For example, if we help a girl to move out from her family because of violence she is facing in the family, we will help the victim because we have system for that. We will replace her away from her family, but we will entrust family itself after we move the girl, because we have the victim focus, which is really the main focus. In most of the cases, we work with violence, which is natural. We always have the focus on victim, we should. But when we're dealing issues which concerns societies, collectives, it's not enough. So, because we see that in most of the cases, this girl who abandoned their family, they go back. They go back to the family of different reason, but mostly of a very understandable good reason, which is that the family unit, the family institution is the most important thing you have in exile. and people who leave their homes because of the war or because of different other challenges, they have only family. They have only family. It is very difficult for a woman or for a man to be willing to abandon the family the rest of their life. So most of them, they go back. We know that. Even we don't have any research on what happened, how this happened, we know that this happened. So if we don't work with the families, so what happens? That same girl, usually girl, come back to the family, maybe the control will be the worst, because now they know the consequences. She will go back to the same circle she left. So that's why not having this holistic approach actually makes the half of the job, I would say. And we know this theoretically, but we don't have any system to deal with that. Another challenge I would point what we have on more local level is that we now have one single NGO in Bergen who is specifically working on this issue. One. This is a big democratical problem. If we don't have NGOs owned by the people who own these issues, how are we make changes? And whose fault is this, of course? And you may ask, why is it like that? Well, as I represent the government here, so I have to be careful. But a very general critic could be like our system. I'm saying just maybe, that might be, I'm just thinking, our bureaucratic system may be making it difficult to actually, for people to just apply and to apply for money, to write an application. I don't know. But what we know is that we don't have more than one NGO in Norway's second biggest city. So it's a big question. As I say, it's a very big democratic challenge. We have to have people who own this issue to fight with us. You know, we have to have like more people like me, more people like Dora and Hiam or whatever. So, but personally, I think the biggest challenge is that with immigration from places which facing war and poverty, forced marriage will always be an efficient migration strategy to bring families in Europe. So if we consider forced marriage only as a cultural issue, then I think we will fail. We have to have this understanding, but it's not enough. That means that we have to understand forced marriage in a migration context. What makes it more desirable? What makes families more desirable to force their daughters or their sons to get into marriage? I mean, when we think about the crisis we have in Syria, and we see how lucky people think they are when they come to Norway, and how miserable most of their families are, those who are not in Norway or are not in Europe. I would say one of the easiest and most efficient way of uniting families and saving them from poverty and insecurity will be forced marriage. So this is a dilemma. At the same time, that means that we are never going to end this issue. So that's why the thinking of implementing the knowledge in our systems and making this issue as a permanent issue to work with and see it as a challenge for the whole society. Because if we do fight for individuals, for freedom of individuals as Norwegians, because this is our values, then we have to fight this for everybody. So then we have to make young people to achieve their dreams, their wishes, like Dia said. And the discussion we have now, because we are almost the end of this last action plan, the discussion we have whether it is reasonable to have a separate action plan against forced marriage or make it a part of the action plan about against domestic violence. This is the issue we have. And I would say the everlasting dilemma is always be how to talk about these issues without marginalizing people who are involved in these issues and making stereotypes and without contributing to otherness, the feeling of otherness. So I think this will always be the dilemma, but we have to think about that. Thank you.